Worked super hard, and some days we wouldn't walk out of the office till like sort of 2-3 a.m. and some of those OG girls were with us the whole way. I'm a very spiritual person, and I kind of always have been, and I think I silenced that side of me when I was going through the business motions because it did conflict in a lot of ways.
It's just about being then totally on purpose.
Yeah,
totally on purpose, and making sure that you're being honest with yourself in that moment, that whatever you're doing in that moment is the purpose for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And just fully backing yourself in whatever that is, which is what you've done.
Yeah, and just even being able to do things and saying, I love this, was good for my experience because it got me in touch with what it feels like to love something and then all just do it for the money or for the, because that's your job title. From a skill set perspective, I've got a lot of missing pieces. So for me, if I have a vision, I need to put myself in the position where I'm surrounded by the right people.
So that together we have clarity, direction, and success way beyond what we ever previously thought possible. Here's your host, Frankie Lee.
First things first, guys, before we get started with this podcast, do me a solid favor and subscribe to this on whatever platform you're listening to it right now. Whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I'd appreciate if you just hit that subscribe button, and it lets me know that the content that I'm putting out for you guys is hitting your ears at the right time. Much love. This podcast is sponsored by contentremoval.com. So whether you're looking to remove any images, videos, search results, fake Instagram accounts, get in touch with us at contentremoval.com. Welcome back to the Frankie Lee podcast. And guys, if you get a chance to watch this on YouTube, you should see it because we're in a new location, a top secret location. But the lady I want to introduce you to today is a Forbes 30 under 30 lady. She's done bits. She's set up one of the top 50 fastest growing tech companies in Australia with her business partner, Jade Spooner. Welcome to your sofa in your kitchen.
I know. Guys, I can't say I've ever done a podcast in my kitchen before, but that's where we found the best lighting. So here we are.
Yeah,
We've manoeuvred the lounge. We're in the kitchen. It's a bit of a funky setup, but I'm here for it.
I think I need the good lighting because at the end of the day, you need as much help as you can get.
Well, I can't believe how much of a difference it made. But anyway, here we are in the kitchen. It actually feels quite intimate. It's like an Oprah Winfrey. I feel like I'm about to just pour my heart out.
You are going to pour your heart out.
I know,
you are.
Maybe.
I think the best place for us to start with you is essentially, look, you've done a lot and achieved a lot in the tech space, and obviously you're coming up to an exit. But I just wanted to give people a bit of an insight into the journey of how you go and to obviously build something like that, and have business partners and all that stuff and do it, bootstrap it, get it going. So when you were at Google, right?
Yeah.
What made you and Amal decide that you were going to go out there and set up
do this thing?
Yeah.
Well, I personally think there's two types of entrepreneurs. I think there's people that are entrepreneurial, that have that business, inherent nature in them. And I think there's people that run into a passion and just think it would be rude not to just adopt it and take on their lifelong mission. And I was very much the latter when I started. So Amal and I were fitness models. We were very restrictive dieters. We sort of ate chicken, broccoli, fish, asparagus, and we got ourselves onto stage. We were both really disciplined. We had a lot of grit about us, and then we were working at Google full time. So Amal was there first, and then she got me a job in the marketing department. So we were both at Google, besties, training together, fitness models, and then we ran into flexible dieting, which was really for us the answer to all of our prayers. So we became educated on the science of nutrition, and we thought, why does the world not know about this? And we both did have, I think, elements in us that made us business savvy. Amal had a hair straightening business prior she had a hair straightening business that, her dad does imports and exports from China. So he's set this up, and she just had to go to, the Westfields, and she had stands and she would sell them and, et cetera, et cetera. And then I ran into a little gig that I did when I was 18, and basically I was working for an agency, and the agency had me contracted out to Anytime Fitness. So I used to hand out flyers for Anytime Fitness. And then at the end of my shift, I said to the owner, how much are you paying for me an hour, if you don't mind me asking? And he said, $65. And I thought, I'm getting 20. These guys are clipping like a real substantial clip from me. So cut a long story short, I said to him, if I can get you some attractive girls and, some reliable ones, would you go through me instead of my agency? So I ditched my agency and I created my own, and that was when I was 18. So we both kind of had that.
So you got together loads of attractive women and started putting them in all these Anytime Fitnesses, giving out leaflets.
Yeah, and then it started with Anytime Fitness, and then it went to like pubs for alcohol companies, and that was sort of like my first little gig when I was 18, and I just sort of did it side hustle for a bit of coin. But cut a long story short, when Amal and I united, we kind of had that in our DNA, and then we came across something that we were just hugely passionate about, which was flexible dieting. So at the time, we had validated the idea, which I think is super important with business. Is we had customers.
So you just did it. You just did it by validated by getting the customers on board. How many customers did you have when you started?
When we started, I think it was probably maybe we had a steady 50 a week or something like that. Paying $75 a week. So we had a business,
Yeah.
And then we were working at Google full time at the time. And so we quit Google, and that's when the magic happened.
And from your point of view, because I've had this from Amar, of her point of view of the day that you two left Google, right?
Yeah.
I want to get that from your perspective.
It was probably exactly as she told it. So we had like sort of dabbled with the idea. We knew that we were onto something, so we couldn't ignore that, and we were hugely passionate, and we had a roadmap. Basically, we were using MyFitnessPal at the time to create meal plans, and we thought it was a hugely flawed tool. So we thought, there's no others in the market. We need to be MyFitnessPal 2.0 plus the addition of customized meal plans as well. So we had this big concept. And, to our credit, a lot of things can change on your journey as a business owner, but one thing that never changed was the vision. So we had this vision, and the only thing we really had to do to get it going was just quit the job. And we sort of toyed with the idea, and on the day I literally pinged Amal, and I'd pulled my manager aside and I said, I quit, your turn. And I handed the baton to her, and she said, oh, fuck, am I allowed to say on this?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, Jade. I got no word of warning. So she then pulled her manager aside, and then she quit as well. So we both quit on the same day.
So would you say then in your relationship in business, you're the one that kind of like takes the baton and runs
I feel like we both had our moments. There were times where I was scared and she said, don't you dare, it's no time to be scared. And there were times where she was freaking out and I said, just chill. We were a really good dynamic duo. Like, we had a really good yin and yang balance, and even now, our paths have gone separate ways, obviously on the business front, but I'll always respect the fact that we were exactly what each other needed to do exactly what we wanted to do at the time.
I think
it was a powerful partnership, powerful.
Yeah, I think you meet people along the path that you kind of go along a certain amount of your journey with, and it's kind of like then that inevitably comes to an end.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and the ignorance of starting a business when you're 21 years old is you think that will never end. And, for me, a lot of the journey out of Equalution, so my exit and whatnot, was sort of even just getting around the fact that what I thought was going to be my forever was really just a chapter. I became aware that I was a business person. I wasn't Jade Equalution. I was a business person. One business was not going to tick all my boxes for forever, unfortunately. And, so that sort of is different to what I suspected when I was 21 years old and started this.
How far was it along the kind of like the build up in the business when you thought to yourself, you know what, I think there's more that I need to do as well on the other side of it?
I started having those thoughts around 2020. And as a result, I think that my place in the business started to decline. Like, I think that I lost my way a little bit. I think I started letting, things happen and letting the direction of the company go in a way that my heart of hearts said, no, stop. This is high risk, or like, this is not the vision, or, the different things like that started to happen. But I think I sat on it for a good 18 months, I think. And then I made the big move in July of last year.
But when you're a team and you're planning this vision and you're sitting there in a room together, or the executive team or whatever, and you're planning the vision for the company, at what point did you start to feel like, oh, fucking hell, like I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that?
When the vision was achieved, I think. So the app as it stands today is exactly what Amal and I, when we quit our full-time jobs at Google and took a one-way ticket to San Francisco, we sat with butcher's paper in her grandparents' living room and we drew up the app. And the app pretty much is what we built. It's what we built at 7 years on. And, it costs a lot of time. It costs a lot of money. It was a great product. I think our customers it's a life-changing product. I really stand by that. But I also think that we're in a day and age, and, you and I were even speaking about this on the phone the other day, like the world is changing.
Yeah,
the world, it's evolving. And I think that's in...
Tech's evolving.
Tech's evolving.
Tech's evolving in its own right.
So for me, like what I did filled me up and gave me a lot of confidence throughout the experience, but I just can't be ignorant to the fact of the opportunity that's out there with the way that the world is moving and the innovation and the ideas. And even since I've been business consulting, there's so many lacking tools that business people need, that my space needs. And I feel this like sort of like a God-given right to be able to go and execute it. I just feel that's my
you're a builder. Like you like to build things, get them to a certain point, and then you like to pass the baton on to someone else and let them run with it.
And anyone in my company, Amal would say the same thing. My sister, who I worked alongside, will say the same thing. From a skill set perspective, I've got a lot of missing pieces. So for me, if I have a vision, I need to put myself in the position where I'm surrounded by the right people to be able to build that vision. So team and operations is like hugely important to anything that I put myself in. So I couldn't just kind of like have an idea and do it on the side on my own. Like I don't code, I don't develop. I have to go all in. Yeah. So for me, when I started getting wandering eyes in the Equalution journey, it was time to wrap it up and move on.
Do you know the thing I want to dig into with you in relation to that and stuff is the fact of like, because I really want people to understand the full picture of being a tech founder, because I think a lot of people get it so misconstrued. They see the start, they see the bootstrapping, then they see the 30, 40 staff, and then they see the exit stuff, and that's all well and good. But I think where people miss out is like when me and you were talking before, we were talking about how like you didn't feel like you could have a boyfriend because you were so deep in work.
So deep.
And it's like, just talk to me through that in your head, like, because I know that there's a lot of learnings you can give on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even, moving on now and going into business consulting and sort of like more of a mentoring position that I have been adopting since I've been outside of Equalution, I feel as though a lot of people kind of silence emotion when it comes to business. It's kind of looked at as two separate things. It's either staunch founder or it's like emotional wreck that can't own a business. But the two can be one. And I feel like they need to speak to one another in terms of your emotion needs to speak to your head at a lot of times. And I think when I started my journey, like a lot of people, their heyday is their 30s to 40s, right? Yeah. But I feel as though I started really early. Like I was 20 years old and I was like, I was owning businesses. And that was like a sort of stabbing my growth chart, I think. It was sort of like it stalled things for me because, for example, I was just so fulfilled, and I was fulfilled in my relationship space because Amal and I were joined at the hip. Yeah, we were not like in a like actual relationship. Yeah. But we were best friends. We lived together. We had dogs together. We had this great business. We got to go to work. Everyone became sort of like almost like a little family. And it was just so fulfilling in that respect.
So you'd use the whole business then to build like your family network and your friends and every circle around you.
We even started hiring friends and family. My sister was our first employee. One of my best girlfriends had a little bit of time off her career path and she jumped in the Equalution dream as well. And it was a heck of a lot of fun. Like it was a lot of fun. We worked super hard and some days we wouldn't walk out of the office till like sort of 2, 3 a.m. and some of those OG girls were with us the whole way. And so it did become like a little family, but I think a lot of eggs then were put in that Equalution basket. And in the meantime, like a lot of, really substantial years in personal growth just kind of went on the fast forward and they just kind of got ran through. Yeah. And then for me personally, when I started sort of thinking about, what my next 5 years looks like after Equalution, and that's when I started saying after Equalution as if it was a chapter that was going to be closed. I started thinking...
So you started to speak it into existence.
Yeah, and when I started sort of thinking about, shutting that chapter, I think I started thinking about life like, I think I want to be a mum, and I think I want to be a girlfriend. And it was stuff that I never really gave myself the ability to be able to think about before, because I didn't think it was possible.
Not a lot of women talk about this on podcasts that are in tech. Like it's kind of like skirted over. That you just go out and you just become like, you know, I'm the powerful woman. I'm going to go out and grab everything, which is all well and good. But like there is a side to a woman that wants this relationship, that wants to be loved, that wants to be with someone and wants to be cared about. And it's like that needs facilitating. So at some point.
And you know what? If I'm really truthfully honest with you, I think the moment that I started thinking about my life as a whole and not just going through the motions of being a director and being head of this and head of that and, you know, building this big empire, the moment that I stopped and was really, really, really honest with myself, I honestly said I was lonely. I was really lonely. All the things that you think would fill you right up to the top, they were just sort of touching the sides for me.
When was that?
That was 2020. It was the year of realization. It was sort of like the year of I just sort of started thinking about what the next chapter looked like on a business front. I felt, even though the Equalution experience was amazing, and you know my resume going after that looks phenomenal, and you only have to Google the company to know that it's a wonderful thing that we built, I still felt I had more in me. You know, I still felt like I wanted a few more challenges. I felt like it was getting a little easier than the start. But
sometimes some of your biggest achievements come in your personal life, not in business.
Well, that's the thing, right? Okay, so I made a really tough decision July of last year. And by the way, like, I'm no rule book. Like, I'm not. I've done things just straight off the bat, and done things a lot on
like
intuition.
Filmed a podcast in your kitchen.
literally. I've done so many things that have just been straight off the bat. And I'm not saying that this is the way to do things or anything like that. But I think, you know, there's things to take from it. And what I did last July was I had a director position in Equalution. I was an employee. I was head of marketing. I think I'm great at my job in regards to, you know, the marketing space, and you only have to look at the branding and the personality of Equalution to see that I did my job really well. But I started to lose passion, and that can impede on, you know, your skill set and your talent and how innovative you are.
Just frustrate you.
Yeah, it really can. So I was honest with myself, and those tough conversations can be really hard, because in business as well, especially if you have achieved success, there's also a bit of ego that comes with that as well, and saying like something's not right and I don't know what it is, and not having answers and things like that, because it comes from self-discovery, is a really hard thing to sit with.
Do you feel like that sometimes it's okay to think of things without having to have the answers in that moment?
Definitely.
Because that's something
if you're entertaining but you're not getting to a decisive answer, that's okay. You've opened the floodgates, and that's good. And I just think, you know, if there's any advice that I could give to even just women in business, it's we have this really powerful ability to feel, and we have emotions, and they can almost drive success on their own, because they can be your grit, they can be your will to succeed, they can be your passion, they can be what gets you out of bed, your emotions, right? But I think we're often led to believe that we have to silence them to be staunch, and this whole like, you know, boss character, and my boyfriend will be the first to tell you, if I want to go somewhere, like, there is like no stopping me. So even in exploring that emotion and that feminine side, you can still be a different kettle of fish, and that's okay, right? But we have this like really beautiful ability to feel, and I think that those, you know, being in touch with your emotional side can lead to some really great maneuvers. And for me personally, that came, you know, last July when I made that really tough call to leave my business, essentially.
Do you think that's essentially then the piece that most women in business are missing? The ability to accept how they feel and to kind of use it for the right direction, kind of thing? Yeah,
I think maybe coming to terms with it, feeling it, you know, confronting yourself with emotion, and then actually doing something with it can be a two-part piece sort of thing. So for me personally, I went kind of through some motions 12 months before my exit, where I was a bit unsure. You know, I in that time I wrote a book, and you know, I love writing. It's just something that I love doing. It's not only like sort of almost a gift, but it's something that I just really enjoy doing as like a hobby. And when I was doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And just even being able to do things and saying, I love this was good for my experience because it got me in touch with what it feels like to love something and then or just do it for the money or for the, because that's your job title or something like that. And I know of stacks of people who are in jobs that they hate. And my question is always why? Like, why? You don't have to do that, And I think I went through those motions too.
But how do you get around someone's belief who believes that they do have to though?
Well, I do think each their own. I think work, business, career path looks different for everyone. Some people like to go and get their check every week and then they like to have the weekends off. Some people like to make a difference. Some people are here to innovate. Some people are like hugely invested in the future and the future of others. It just depends on who they are. I've learned, like, I think in my younger years there was a bit of a high horse association with the fact that I worked around the clock. It was kind of like, you
put it on a pedestal type thing.
Like we hustle hard, that sort of thing. But I think I've just engaged with so many people now that everyone's journey looks so different, and that's so okay.
I think it all comes down to like fulfillment.
Yeah.
If you go and work in the local 7-Eleven, but you get fulfilled from serving your community and serving customers, and that lights you up.
Yeah.
This is what I've come to understand. It's like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because that's if that's you, that's you.
That's you, yeah.
I used to have this big thing in my head where I would think, if you've not got a business, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you don't have a company structure and all this stuff, you're not, you're spinning your wheels. But then when I started to do like more spiritual work and that, like, more breath work, right, more looking inward, I started to realise that there's a lot of people that work a job that me and you would perhaps find no contentment in, but they find purpose. Yeah, as long as you find purpose in what you do, that is what you should lean into. Yeah. And everyone else's opinion on it doesn't matter a fuck, because it's just, you have to find purpose in something. One
of my favourite entrepreneurs is Tillman Fertitta. He's an American billionaire, and he owns a lot of restaurants, and he's huge in the hospitality industry, but he's gone to own like an MBA team and all sorts, right? He's a great entrepreneur, and he has this great quote where he says, not word for word, but something along the lines of, I have huge respect for anyone in any field who does their craft and they do it well, whether it be someone that pulls apart a motor car and does the mechanics of it, anyone. But I just think we all make different amounts of money, and that's our difference. Yeah. And I think that's really powerful, because it's very much the truth. Like, I don't think anyone is any better than anyone else. I think the journey of life is sort of as woo-woo as it sounds. It's all about like, why are you here? And that doesn't rest on anyone else. And sometimes you'll find people that will sort of, I guess, give more wind and more momentum to your why than if you were just on your own. And that's like great partnerships, like the early days of Amal and I, like we were the wind beneath each other's wings,
Yeah, you had to have each other to be able to facilitate that growth.
Yeah, and there's people that align with people and, are part of, growing a particular chapter in their life. But overall, I think what you do with your day-to-day is just part of why you're here,
Yeah, and I think, but it's all the judgment. It's the self-judgment that fucks people.
Yeah.
People judge themselves like you. Obviously, you were judging yourself as like lonely at the time.
Yeah.
Loneliness probably wasn't really there truly, but it felt like it was there at the time. And then you had to go and facilitate that missing part. But I think that all comes from looking within.
Definitely. You know what I mean? When I think about like that lonely phase, right? For me, it was just like I was single for 4 years before I met my partner, which was 3 months ago. So
big shout out, Matt.
I love you so much. But I was single for about 4 years. And basically, I just found myself doing a lot of things on my own. I went overseas on my own. I used to go for like hikes on the weekend on my own. I went for walks on my own. I used to take myself to breakfast. I used to take myself to dinner. And I was so okay with that. Like, it was part of my, just my routine. But I think there was just a few times towards when I started to warm up pre getting into a relationship that I was like, I'd really enjoy doing this with someone. And that was sort of, I became so accustomed to just doing things on my own. Like, I think about one of my favorite years was 2018, and it was when Amal and I first moved into each other. We had this like really cool house on the harbour in Sydney. We just got our 2 little dogs, and the 4 of us were living together, and we had a really cool thing going on in the Equalution space. Like, we were building, and building is my favourite phase, I've learnt. And, we'd kind of go to work together of a morning. We'd sometimes train together of a morning, but usually our mornings were really separate. We'd come back together, have brekkie, go into the office, and then we'd come back home and cook dinner, and then like go to bed. And that leaves no space really for loneliness there, right?
Yeah. Because you're busy.
Yeah, you're busy. But then I started to obviously we started to get more structure in our business when our team grew, and when it got to sort of like that 25 plus kind of mark, all the heads were in the right places and everything mechanically was working, quite well. And for that reason, we were able to finish work at 5 and we got the weekends and all that kind of stuff. And that was when I really started to think that there was more to life than work.
Yeah. So as soon as you got some time back off the table, that's when you started to see gaps in like, wow, there's actually more to life than just do business and make money.
Yeah, exactly.
Which essentially is what you were doing.
Yeah. And I'll still continue to do that, but I just think I'll do it better. Going forward.
With more balance of of the personal side.
Yeah.
What kind of things are you going to put into the next 12 months to make sure that you get that?
Well, I think the difference between me back then and me now is that I'm in a relationship, and it's like my forever person. Like this is...
You know that?
Yeah, I know. I'm 100% sure. Yeah, I'm 100% sure.
Okay, before you answer that, for someone like me, how do you know?
You just know. And I know that sounds so cliche, but like when you meet that person, you just know.
But describe that to me, because I need to understand how this works, because I've never had that.
I don't really believe in like the love at first sight type sort of stuff, like I've had, prior to meeting Matt, like I've had that instant like, holy smokes, there's something here type feeling, like that chemistry. But with Matt, I felt like it was not necessarily like in that one meeting moment, but it was just all the time that we had spent together thereafter. It just felt so right. Yeah. Like it was for someone that has had a highly complex life. Like nothing that I do is straightforward. Like, I can't just go and get a normal job. I have to be creating something crazy and, managing lots of people. I'm not a normal kind of conventional person.
Yeah.
But this was one thing where I just thought, oh my God, it's so easy, and it was different to anything like I had ever experienced before as well. Just even the
lack of structure helped you. The lack of structure. That's what it was. I just figured it out. It's the lack of structure, because everything in your life up until that point had structure. And it's like, because this was like not planned, it was lack of structure. It was. You were like, wow, this is, because you imagine everything in your life had been like from a management role or from a director position.
Calculated.
Everything's calculated. You got to plan it out.
Yeah.
This geezer's just walked in.
Yeah.
Just like.
He got me the best time too. So the poor guy,
the best time.
We literally had like almost like a honeymoon. So basically, I resigned in July. I met Matt in November, and I had a few months of I was working for Body Science, like I was doing the marketing for Body Science, and I was working really heavily full time with them. And then just before I met Matt, I had finished up my contract with Body Science, and I decided to just pursue consulting until the exit was done. So in that time, I was consulting, and it was like really like it's easy for me, I can jump on a call and I can see things so clearly because it's not my business. So I can give so much
from looking out.
Yeah. And then I can put it under the microscope and I can see things at a different level because I have been there. And then I was just doing like consulting calls, which for me didn't even feel like work. And I was so chill and I could make my own timetable and I wasn't under pressure. And then I met Matt. It was kind of like, I feel as though all the ducks had aligned, and then I met him. Sort of like I quit my job. I realized that I was really good at something, was doing it on my own accord, really casually, not for money, just for passion. And then this exit was happening sort of in the background. And then we started dating, and in the last month I've started consulting, but I've joined forces with a girlfriend of mine that I've spoken to you about, and we're sort of doing a consulting firm, and the influx of between the influx of clients and just, you know, sort of essentially rebuilding another business structure, hiring again, all that kind of stuff. I've just gone from 0 to 100, and I'm up at night like 12, like midnight working, and the poor guy's got me when I'm so flexible. I'm like, yeah, I can go to dinner tonight. I can do a walk this afternoon, and now I'm like literally tied to my computer. But that's another thing, right? Like, so he knows this is part parcel of like who I am and what I do. So chill, but the right person will. But
they say in a relationship, you don't actually meet the person until 6 months anyway. Because you have to see all sides of them.
Yeah, well, he's seen definitely all sides of me now.
Yeah, inside three.
It started off, I was so chill, and even my, you know, when my parents met him, and my one thing that stuck was when my grandfather met him, and he said to Matt, he sort of keeps his cards quite close, but he said to him, he said, I've honestly never seen her so happy, and she's just so calm. She's so calm, because everyone was so used to me being so
bang, 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 all ratty all the time.
Funny story, my sister, she calls me Nim. That's her nickname for me. She calls me Nim. She'll be like, hey, Nim. And Nim came from, because she thinks that my brain, if you were to go inside, it would look like this. Nim, 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 Nim. So she calls me Nim now. But yeah, that's what my family were used to. That's what my friend, I was just zippy, very, very zippy. And now, you know, I met him, and he put another feather on my bow, sort of thing.
So in the next 12 months, then you've obviously got a lot planned, like business and personally. Like what's your kind of goals for the next 12 months in terms of like, you know, your personal? I want to hear what you're doing like for your personal self. Like, are you gonna do some breath work, like I said to you?
Yeah, no, I'm a very spiritual person, and I kind of always have been, and I think I silenced that side of me when I was going through the business motions, because it did conflict in a lot of ways. There was a lot of things that didn't feel right, but I was like, this is part of it, you know. I'm tired, I'm overworked, I'm burning the candle at both ends, but I got to do what I got to do now. And I sort of see business very much like a weight loss journey. I think, you know, you can definitely have balance. You don't need to give up everything, and you don't certainly need to do it all at once, but you definitely have to have that really diligent period at the start where you do your time, you form your foundations, and then you can get a little bit more flexibility later down the track.
Yeah.
And I see business as a very much, like a very similar sort of journey. And if I look back on my business journey, I think, you know, those days are done, and they cost me big time. They did. They really cost me in terms of just mental health, you know. I wasn't in a heap or anything like that, but I was just a bit sad for a happy person. It
just takes a little bit of every day that you go in where you're not fully complete and you're not yourself. It just takes another little part of you away, and then another part, and then another part, and another part.
Yeah, and I think health and sleep are two really important facets to that equation as well. And I quite literally, and Amal will vouch for this, we weren't sleeping. Like, we were up all night, and it was really hard just to like function and be happy and be energetic, and there was a lot of things that were missing. So on the spirituality kind of front, like for someone that's quite in touch, I had to kind of like just like come out of that person and go into like an autopilot person that wasn't necessarily as in touch. So I think going forward now, something that's super important to me is fitness. Anyone who knows me knows that I won't go a day without exercising. And that's for no other reason. Like, I'm not obsessed with, you know, the way I look, or I'm not obsessed with exercise itself. It's just, it makes me feel so good. And for that reason, it did form the basis of, you know, a future venture, because I am so passionate about fitness. I think, you know, gamifying fitness and sharing it on social media and your workouts, and even, you know, clocking up, you know, goals for the week versus what you actually performed, and very, very similar to how Apple Activity have kind of gamified the experience for a user. I see a lot of potential in that space.
And this is WeTrained, yeah?
That's WeTrained, yeah. So WeTrained has got an element of that together with a business management system for personal trainers and online coaches as well. So it's like a two-part system. So there's a user end whereby they can, track, share, and then there's the business management system where PTs and health professionals can very similarly track and monitor the analytics and business performance of their business and clients as well.
And what's the key difference there between what you're building and with WeTrained and what's already currently on the market?
I think the main difference is, when it comes to business management system, if you take a personal trainer, they're usually using a number of different platforms to do a number of different things. They'll do their programming on one thing, they'll do their booking on another thing, and then they'll do their finances on another. So I think conjoining that is super important, and that makes for a really complex platform. And when I think about the benefit of, and I guess the blessing of being in the position that I've been put in coming out of the exit of Equalution, I can financially support the big dream of that, which is maybe why it hasn't been created to now, because it's like a bit of a monstrosity. So it'll be kind of rolling out different features at different times as you do in the tech space. But I just don't think there's a one-stop shop for everything. And then from the user perspective, when you sort of see a lot of people take photos and whatnot of their Apple Watches and post it to social with workouts around it, just kind of neatly putting that together, that doesn't quite exist at the moment. Kind of like Strava, but for everything, not just running.
Yeah, so you're going to be the app that runs on the watch so that you're in that picture.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
I get you now. So that's the virality, the kind of, you're building the virality in the market.
Around that. Yeah. And then the obvious, like the how we monetize is from being a business management system for trainers and health professionals.
And in regards to like the MVP, like what gets put out there as the minimum viable to the marketplace, what is that going to entail?
That would be a very basic version of the overall vision. So the functionality system of that, like virality marketing, like putting, content out there that represents workouts that have been completed on a social front for the user. But then from a business perspective, just your very basics, being able to book, being able to take payments, being able to see arrears, being able to see your schedule, being able to send e-workouts, so allowing a personal trainer that does one-to-one to go and move online, adding videos to that experience. So that would be the minimum viable.
So essentially giving a personal trainer a CRM, which most of them don't have.
Yeah.
Because they're using like Calendar for booking, and they've got an email list on Aweber, then they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this.
Correct.
And it's just all too bolted together with
correct.
Zapier in the middle trying to automate some stuff, which is like, if you try and use Zapier to try and put things together, it's a great tool, but to try and slap all those tech platforms together, it never works seamlessly.
Yeah, and I think that also comes down to as well, like who is this being created for? And I think a lot of these different platforms have been created for a lot of different markets and a lot of different customer avatars. But if you think about the personal trainer or the online coach, like you can create something that is specifically for them that is so much far better suited because you've thought about your target market, And I think that's a key to business, right? I think it's understanding who the hell you want to hold your thing, buy your thing, use your thing, be interactive with your service, like who's your person.
When I had a boxing gym years ago, I had MindBody to run all the booking system. Nightmare.
Yeah, I know.
Absolute nightmare.
I know. Cheers, MindBody, one of my inspos for the new venture.
And every time you needed like help, the customer service is abroad and you can't get in contact with them, and it's just, there is so much of a market for that, because that is needed for like anyone that wants to scale from like a there's two things. There's people that want to scale from like doing the one-to-one PTs, from being able to book and all that stuff. But then there's the people that want to scale from like 5 figures to 6 figures, 6 figures to 7 figures. How do they do it without having the right tech behind them? Exactly.
Well, for now, everything is highly manual, which essentially, if I draw back to my business journey, I feel like everything has got me to this point to understanding that's how evolution takes place, from a really shit process that is like a number of steps. How can you make that lesser, which ultimately makes your operations internally better, which ultimately makes your business more efficient, and you can service more people, you you can save money on overheads in terms of staffing, and that's essentially what scaling is. It's like taking a shit process and it's turning it into something that is more feasible on a longevity front. And so when you say, you know, how do you get past what's out there now? Well, someone's got to innovate something, you know.
Yeah,
I think
you have to be different. Yeah,
you got to be different. So now I see things being done through, you know, there's like Kajabi that do the courses and they spit out, you know, you can roll out like bits of content, dribble it out to the customer, and you can scale a little bit that way because you can repurpose things. And you know, online coaching has sort of reduced itself to everyone used to do a weekly check-in, and now they might do a fortnightly or a monthly and take things from phone calls to WhatsApp or something like that. But I just think
there's got to be some way better to give accountability to the user and accountability to the coach as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm obviously hugely passionate about the online coaching space, but I think what started as a passion for nutrition has turned into a passion for health and wellness. So I think the diversity in the industry is something that I absolutely love. You know, it's not just about food; it's about a lot of things.
Just so that everyone understands, how much does it cost to take something like that from an idea where you write it out on your table and kind of draw a skeleton to building it into the minimum viable app? Like, what is the kind of cost trajectory of building something like that?
There's a couple of ways to skin a cat. You can do it internally, so you can bring in, you know, a team internally in terms of like engineers and you know, full stack developer and whatnot. I have zero tech knowledge, which is surprising for some people, but I have sort of like an understanding of, you know, platforms and a roadmap type thing. But I couldn't tell you if code is neat or messy, or if systems are like, you know, security threats or anything. I couldn't tell you that, but I know that sort of stuff's important. So for me, I would build the team to be beefier than if I was to have a partner that had tech knowledge. So if you partnered with you know, someone that had a tech background, you know, whether they be a full stack developer or a coder or something like that, your costs would be a lot more reduced. But I've got to go kind of like the whole 9 yards because I know nothing.
Because I've had a lot of mates that built apps, not just in the fitness space, but in all kinds of different spaces, and usually to get them off the ground, you're talking like 200-400K just to get the minimum viable done.
Even just like the discovery, right? Like if you don't really have a vision, if you've got sort of an idea, and having an idea and having a vision are two kind of completely different things. Like I was pretty clear on exactly what I wanted, so I was able to kind of skip discovery, and I built the prototype, like I fleshed out the prototype on my own. But that process in itself, if you were to consult like a tech company or something like that and sit down and say, I want it to achieve this, and they say, okay, well, this would be the customer journey type thing in app, that process itself can be like 25 grand. And that's before you even know whether you're going to go through with it. So it can be quite expensive. You know, the Equalution tech product is in the millions, and then you know, you can start something for a few $100,000, but like
to keep it going. This is why there's two things that I want to say to you on that. Is one, why it was refreshing to see you talk about the consulting model and how like profitable and fulfilling it is. Because I always tell people, if you're going to start anything, start consulting. Like find a problem, fix it, and do the consulting on it. The second thing is like, how do people know to have the conviction then, in your experience, to go in on a tech build on an app? Like what's your kind of feeling on that? For like, there could be people out here now that have always wanted to start an app and they think they've got a wicked idea. How do they know when to back that idea?
Well, it's just a difference of person, really. Like some people will back it when they don't even know what the outcome's going to be, versus someone who may just go to the grave with that dream. And I think that's just a difference in persona, really. I don't think it's anything to do with something that will happen along the way that will give you that push. I think it comes down to the individual. Like, who are you? When I'm passionate about something, I'll risk it all for it. You know, like I'm about to do an exit with Equalution, and my life could look really chill from here on in if I wished it to, but I don't think that that's in my nature, and I don't think that's what will make me happy. And I think if you've innovated, you can't take that experience and wipe it from your memory bank. I think that is a contagious feeling that you want to replicate. And I'm a person that is passionate, you know, in all areas. Maybe it's why it took me 101 years to find a boyfriend, because I wouldn't settle. You know, I wanted to feel the full capacity of what I knew that feeling was going to feel like. Same with business, you know, like on paper I had it all, but it didn't feel right. So I went with passion over comfort. And I just, if I had a burning idea, I just could see no other option than to just run with it. And even now, I think the benefit of doing things as I've done it, one thing that really kind of grind my gears and just like, it was a hard pill to swallow, was when I first got out of Equalution. Like I'm talking, I announced my resignation on just my small social media, and you think like no one gives a toss. But I got flooded with, what are you doing now? It's like, I just want to breathe. I just want to find myself, you know? Yeah. And so I think the beauty of actually not feeling the pressure to go and be fabulous the next day really gave me the time to consult. I did the consulting thing, and then I partnered with Jenna, and now we've been servicing essentially my WeTrain market. And it's like I've microscopically put my customers that I'm going to service one day just really, really like definely under a microscope, and been able to discover them in a completely different scope to what I would have done if I just would have gone and just done the app straight away. So I think that also came down to intuition. I wasn't really ready, like not even the fact that I wasn't ready to just go straight into it on the basis that I hadn't shut the Equalution chapter, because my exit is still in motion. But like, I personally wasn't ready either. I wanted to smell the roses for a little bit. I went to some parties, I went to some dinners, I did all sorts of things, you know, and it was fun.
But you get bored. You get bored real quick of partying.
Yeah, but now I'm like ready to go again, and all it took was a little bit of breathing time. But I could never see myself like talking myself out of this, given that it's so there in my mind. So I think if people have that and just like can't ignore it, that's when you go with it. But if you're someone that's like, I could lose it all for this and I don't know if it's worth it, then don't. Like, it's, you know, live your life how you want to live it. I'm very much all about that.
I'm kind of at the stage now where I'm risking it for a chocolate biscuit, you know what I mean? Like in terms of this podcast.
The podcast.
Because I
thought you were going to tell me you're going to get into like the food industry and do something dessert related. I was like, chocolate.
Dessert related.
I hear chocolate and I'm just like, there you
You want to eat it.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about like, you know, I try and put my heart and soul into this because I fucking love it. It lights me up. You know, you can see that. Other people can see that. But it's like, you know, on the other side of the coin, content removal if I put all my energy into that as a business rather than half, it could be a hell of a lot further ahead. And you kind of have to be comfortable when you make that decision. From my point of view, when you make that decision, you're going to put your heart into something you're passionate about and follow that. You know, you just got to trust in the process and have a massive amount of trust in yourself and what you're going to bring. Yeah. That's kind of similar to what you're doing.
No, definitely. And you know what? If anyone is like wanting to take gold nuggets from this, I get a lot of questions. Like whenever I do like a Q&A or something like that on my Instagram, I get a lot of questions about like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like, I don't know. I don't know what my purpose is and stuff like that. And I think that sort of comes from like a fear of thinking that everything needs to be, you know, you've got to be listed in Forbes and build something crazy and all that kind of stuff, where in actual fact, I always say to people in that instance, like, just take some time to work it out. Like, you don't need to have all the answers tomorrow, but I think the best thing that someone can do for themselves is put a pause on the cycle that I guess is not getting them to that point of realization and just take some time for themselves. Like, I exhausted all of my leave before I made the decision to resign at Equalution, because there was still that like little part of me that was like, could I savor my place in that business? Could I turn it into something that does make me excited? like, what does the different options look like? And I just wanted some time to be like 100% sure. And the day I resigned, I was not only 100%, I was 200% sure. And it came after like 3 months of leave.
Because you'd given yourself enough time to sit with it.
Yeah. And that, I love that interview with Judge Judy where she goes, if you didn't make it in your 20s, you can make it in your 30s. If you didn't make it in your 30s, you can make it in your 40s. And I think that's the key. I think people are just so under pressure because today's day and age, just through, social media, through just seeing a lot of success stories.
Everyone's comparing everyone.
Yeah, but like that's not life, hey, like
it's not real.
I was on social media winning awards left, right and center. We were Deloitte fastest growing tech company. We were Young Entrepreneurs of the Year. We were in Forbes, all this kind of stuff. And that founder, me, was behind the scenes going, holy smoke, what am I doing?
Yeah. You don't know who you want. Am I
going to have kids? Am I going to get married? Am I going to love what I do again? Like I was having all of those thoughts behind like many badges of honor, So
the thing is, we all wear our problems as well. We all like to get our problem and then like wear it and sit on the problem rather than just being at peace and just allowing everything to be as it is. Put a bit of cash in the bank. Give yourself a little bit of time to think. Take yourself off for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever you can do, and just don't book anything in. Just sit there and just like Jade's saying, just be with it and just be fucking present.
Yeah.
Like, because we're all trapped in like this, how we felt in the past and how we'll feel in the future when we get to here.
Yeah.
But that little 10% that you're probably thinking about now, which is the present moment, needs to be fucking 80%, 90% of your life. You need to be present right now, because that changed the game for me when I started to become more present rather than worried about being number one in 16 different countries over here. Bro, just be present in every podcast that you're in. Just enjoy every conversation. Stop fucking worrying about that shit. Just works itself out.
Yeah, one of my best mates always says to me, "Call your jets, Jade," and I love it because it's so true. Like there's no real better analogy than
call your jets. It's true. Like we all get trapped in this. Like you might be having a shit day. You go onto Instagram and there's another girl who's having a shit day, but she's put a great photo on of a photo and she's just fucking won this and done this and done this. And everyone's tapping like and there's comments going on it. And you look at it now and you're now in comparison mode. You're like, fucking hell, my life's shit. Meanwhile, she's sat in a lounge fucking nearly in tears because her life's shit too.
Yeah.
That is the reality. That is the reality of what we're living in right now.
Yeah.
No one actually truly knows who's happy and who's not, because no one's really speaking into it. Yeah,
definitely. And that's why I've always kind of taken it, whenever I'm asked, I'm always honest about the journey and, how I've felt along the way and the times where it didn't feel good and the times that it felt fucking great. Like, I think for an overview and like a complete context, you need to be honest, because it's not all roses,
How do you feel right now, like in regards to like your breakup right now with everything that's going on in terms of like business?
I'm just, as a person right now, I'm just so happy. Like I'm genuinely so happy. But, and I've said this to you before, I think that, a partnership split is essentially a little bit like a divorce. And, that's going to probably take some healing. Like, Amal and I will always forever have so much respect for each other. But I think, just like reflecting on what used to be versus like, going in different directions now, she's going to take the driver's seat of the Equalution dream and I'm going to go on to build something else. And like, that's not what 21 and 22-year-old Amal and I sat down on the lounge room floor and planned for our futures, so things have become different based on just growth and change, which is so okay. But there's sadness in that as well, like we were like living together and we ran a business together and now we're doing different things and we've only ever known building together. And it's like, so there's definitely a little bit of sadness in that, but with one door closing, like as cliche as it sounds, another one for me has opened and I'm just like entering a whole new chapter of life. And it's like, I really, really was praying for this back in the days where I was feeling a little bit empty. Like I wanted to feel excited by a build again.
Yeah.
And because everything was like kind of happening really easily on the Equalution front, like we have such a great team and we had budget and we had resource and, you know, it became a lot easier than the early days where we were just clutching at straws for another hour in the day to get the shit done.
Yeah.
So and then the other side of that was like I just so badly like I just wanted like someone to go out for dinner with and someone to say how was your day, and then me to sort of like, you know, I'm by nature like I'm very like sort of caring person, and you know I always make Matt lunch every day for work, and like I just knew I had that in me and I wanted that side to come alive, like I really did, and now
you kind of feel like that piece has been put in place.
Yeah, and you
that's
know
beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I have full respect for that.
Yeah, so I think like, you know, I obviously look back on the past, and if I could go back and do another day, you know, just Amal and I and our OG girls, and, you know, we didn't have all the bells and whistles in the office and everything like that. It was just us. Like, that'd be really cool to relive. But this other chapter of life was really something that I worked for. Like, I've worked for this. So I think cool.
I think the hardness comes in the fact of like when, you know, one wants to continue the journey in the business, one wants to step away, and neither's right or wrong in that.
Yeah.
And then there's the fact of like, you know, you best friends, you work together so long. And
yeah.
And obviously now when there's a breakup like this in a tech company, there's money involved.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and when things like that happen, it's so much more difficult because it just highlights everything.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's something that like I don't want to go through again. Like I really don't want to do this again. And for that reason, my structures going forward are going to be so different.
So break down then for me how the structure changes.
Well, I went into business 50-50. Everything was 50-50 because it was our idea. We were equal partners. But I've since left to do my own thing, and it's not like I haven't sort of come up with the idea with, you know, someone else or anything like that. It was very much my own, and I think I need a team and I value a team and I love working with talent.
But you want more than 50% this time.
But I think I need to understand that if I do, you know, inherit any talent and then give ownership to a degree that it makes it equal to mine, then that means that my vision becomes our vision. And I now know when those visions don't align, what happens. So I'll just be a lot more careful this time round. I've learned a lot. You know, no one did anything wrong in my last partnership. We quite literally just, you know,
have different visions.
It's quite obvious. You know, I'm going to build something in the fitness space and Equalution is in the nutrition space. It's just quite simply two different passions and two different ideas on where we want our futures. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So,
but it's good that you mentioned that bit about structure, because the structure alleviates all the issues along the track.
I met someone last week. I've been getting a little bit of just advice and help and stuff through this exit, because I've never been down this route before, and it's been quite confronting and it's overwhelming, and it, you know, as much as you want to say yes to everything that's put in front of you, you've got to be realistic at the fact of what's been invested to date, what it's created, what its potential is, and then what obviously
it's got to be a fair break.
Yeah, and what that means for your future. And I met someone last week and we sort of had a chat. He's like, just out of curiosity, what are you up to now? And I sort of just like let him know, and I told him about, you know, how I'm sort of streamlining consulting, so letting that be one business and then creating something which essentially it sort of reflects it's a bit of like a similar journey to the Equalution experience. So sort of two things happening at the moment for me. And both I feel really strongly about. And he loved both concepts. He loved the We Trained idea more than anything. But then when we started to talk about equity and partners and whether any of that was happening and all that kind of stuff, he said, can I give you a word of advice? He's like, a lot of what you've just told me now is you. Like, you know, you're investing the money. It's your idea. You've got the understanding. You've got the drive. You just got to get someone to build the thing, which means for me, like you need, I see it as you need staff rather than equity partners. So he's like, don't be giving away equity like it's a piece of your birthday cake. He said, you know, just be mindful of where this cake originated from. You've gone in the kitchen and you've baked it. And he said, you know, just don't be giving away willy-nilly. Like, that's sort of what he said. And I thought that was really important because I've come from a background and an understanding where, you know, equity is like neither here nor there to me. I haven't really taken it super seriously because it was very. But
when push comes to shove, it does matter. It's a very
serious decision. You know, it wasn't in my last. I never had to decipher that last time because it couldn't have been more 50-50 than what we produced. But now it's like, well, what does that look like, you know?
Well, there's corporate structures as well that have different equities, but like different voting rights on the equities as well.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
So like it can get really confusing. So you could have a piece of equity that has no rights essentially.
Exactly, yeah. And then, you know, I've just sort of learned in the last like couple of months there's like a number of ways to skin a cat. You can have like, you know, maybe a portion of profit share or something like that if you've got someone doing like sweat equity as a contrast for like sweat equity or something along those lines. So that I would always recommend that to anyone that's going down the new business venture route is just explore your options because there's probably a number of ways to do things better than just the old standard, we'll go Harvey's, you know.
Years ago I did a business and I gave away a 5 or 10% day one for shit money, right? And it just came to bite me on the ass. It's the worst decision of my life. And you know what I mean? Those decisions end up having to be paid back and paid off and all that stuff. And
yeah,
it's
they
like
come to bite you.
Everything you put out comes home to roost. That's why if you put out good, you get good back.
Yeah, I believe that too.
In essential, but with the equity thing, I fucking know exactly what you're talking about. It's you got to be so you can pay people handsomely but not give equity away. Equity is like you got to hold on to equity.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that is your exit strategy.
Yeah. I just feel like I've learnt so much from, you know, the past, and you can't sort of ignore, like when you see everything go in full motion, like you can't be ignorant. Like I've been very blasé in my business journey. Like I've just been grateful for what has come from just two young girls that had like a really crazy dream sort of thing. Like I've been really grateful, and I haven't necessarily been bright in the sense of like always maximizing that, you know, like I was really willy-nilly with tech. I was like, I'll spend all the money in the world. We've got to get the best product. And like as a result now I feel like we do have the best product, but like the industry is changing and that needs updating. That's like now it's at this standard where the continual
needs a lot of cash.
My God, yeah. And I never thought of that at the start, you know. So I just think your mind changes when you've had experiences. So sometimes you can say things like, it's the worst mistake of my life, or I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have done that. But in hindsight, it's probably not a bad thing considering what may have come after that, where it could have cost you way more if you didn't have that knowledge coming from a prior era. So, yeah, I feel a bit more like I've got my wits about me this time. And I think a lot of people have even said to me like, would you ever go into business with like friends again after, you know, you and your best friend created? And I was like 100%. Like none of my bridges have been burnt in that respect. It's more just like I think I'd be a smarter business person.
Yeah.
Everything journey wise went fine, but it's like business wise, I think when you have knowledge that's accrued from experience, you really need to lean on it.
Well, it's the only problem comes with these business with friends relationships is when you own 50% each, and then one of you wants to do this and one of you wants to do that. Now you got a problem.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't have a problem before, but now you do have a problem.
Yeah.
Because your visions don't align. You want to do this, they want to do that. Cool. Now it comes to selling a piece of the business. It's like, well, who buys it? Do they buy it? Does equity buy it? I mean, how does that work? When you go to exit a business like you're doing, do you sell that piece back to the other partner, or do you have to put it around the town for a private equity firm to come in, or how does that work?
I have to be completely transparent. I haven't been hugely involved in the process, given the fact that like I'm not inheriting whoever is buying into the company afterwards. So there's sort of been a team that's been working on that, and for me, I'm just the seller, so I have to be just happy with the price and the arrangement and everything like that. So that's been my involvement to date. But from what I know, there's like share buyback versus like, you know, like acquiring a new partner, all that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. Exiting is like, I don't know if I could go through it again. I don't want to.
How long a process would you say exiting is? 12 months?
It depends on the business. We had a lot of big fish biting the bait. So, but then, you know, in terms of like attractive offers that then come out of that, like people want to hear about it. Like that's a good sign. And then the actual, like the physical offers.
Who backs out with the numbers?
Yeah, the numbers thing like that then slims that down a little bit more. And there wasn't crickets in my process. So I think maybe that's why it was a little faster than others. But like I have never done this before. So I can't say that I know, but mine's been long and I just
want it to be over. No, I don't blame you. Like it just
goes back to that like spiritual thing that we were talking about before, you know, like if you're kind of a spiritual person, like having your foot in an old camp isn't just like spiritually, it's not a fine feeling. Like it's just not, it's not good. And even like when
clean breaks are always the way.
Yeah. And even, you know, some people have toyed with the idea like, oh, why don't you keep, you know, X% in, or why don't you do, and I just know what sort of human being I am. And it's just like, it's either you're in or you're out. You're not half in, you're not half out. Like it's just, it's in or out. So yeah.
Well, if you believe in doing something else for yourself right now, and that's right for you, just do that.
It's the belief factor as well. Like I think you can be like an entrepreneur and have like a number of different ventures happening at one time, but you need to like, for me personally, I think it's really important to back them all. I think you need to be able to like, you know, if you had say, you know, even say if I was to open a restaurant or something like that, I'd want to walk in there and be like, I believe in the quality of this food. I love what people are getting put on their table. I love the aesthetic of this restaurant. I love, you know, walking through the front doors and not seeing mitts on the front doors or cigarette butts in the car park. Like I love this venue. I love this premise. So I think for anything that I do, I'll always need that feeling. I'm sure that there are other, you know, business people and entrepreneurs that could maybe just have like a piece of the pie and get their monthly check and all that kind of stuff. But just for me, I knew who I was, and I just knew I needed to like feel all the feels and be a 100% like, this is mine and I love what it's doing.
It's just about being then totally on purpose.
Yeah.
Totally on purpose, and making sure that you're being honest with yourself in that moment, that whatever you're doing in that moment is the purpose for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And just fully backing yourself in whatever that is, which is what you've done.
Yeah.
No, I love that. If you were going to give some golden wisdom, so like if you were just checking out the planet, right? Imagine you're checking out the planet, you got nothing, you can't leave nothing else. What would be the piece of the pearl of wisdom that you'd leave to people to carry forward? What would that be?
Like advice?
Yeah, advice-wise, yeah. Like advice for moving through whatever you've moved through.
I think don't back a commercial decision over something that doesn't feel right. I think something that we do in business a lot is silence feeling. And I think that feeling is fulfillment. I think it's happiness. I think it's your definition of success. Whatever that contentment is for you can often be at the detriment of, like, you know, a commercial decision. So I think if something's not feeling as it's supposed to, no matter how good it looks on paper, no matter how flashy it is, no matter how much money it's putting in your back pocket, I think if you know yourself, go with the thing that most represents you.
Love it. That is quality.
That's my last 12 months in a little nutshell, really.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me in my kitchen.
Yeah, thanks. I hope you like Jade's kitchen. Like this, the apartment's sick, to be honest. The apartment's sick, but I can't show you that on here. But guys, do me a solid favour. Follow at Jade Spooner on Instagram, and you'll see all her business ventures and everything she's building and all that stuff. The meals out, the partying, all that's on there. At Frankie Lee on Instagram if you want to follow me too. But do me a favour, send us both a message. Let us know what pearls of wisdom you picked out of that. Hopefully that last piece definitely hit your ears at the right time. And thank you very much. Thank you
for having me.
Much love, guys.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Frankie Lee Podcast.